Welcome everyone to our next session. That's titled Resources for Rare Diseases and Genetics. And we're going to have three presentations, but we're going to start with a presentation by Marybeth McAfee, who is going to, so sorry, I'm having a problem with my video. So Marybeth is a genetic counselor with special interest in helping individuals with rare disease to find accurate information, specialists, and available research options. Additionally, she's been supporting rare disease patient organizations to be participants in treatment development pathways. And in 2021, she joined the National Organization of Rare Disorders, also known as NORD. So Marybeth, we'll let you start, and I will prompt you if we're getting close to our time.
Thank you, everyone, for the lovely introduction and for inviting NORD to present today. And thank you to all who are tuning in for taking the next 15 minutes to hear about some of the activities and resources of the National Organization for Rare Disorders, more commonly known as NORD. I have no relevant financial disclosures. The takeaways from my talk today are learn about what NORD does and why, including why NORD began the NORD Rare Disease Centers of Excellence program. And most importantly, I would like you to identify at least one resource that will be useful to you, a loved one, or a patient, or a way to collaborate with NORD in the future. We have a poll to learn about who is tuned in for this session.
We've got answers coming in, Marybeth, so I'm just giving people a little bit more time. Well, the answers are starting to slow down a little bit. So if you are trying to make a decision, now's the time to make a decision. Claim who you are for this poll in this moment, as I'm going to end the poll in 3, 2, 1. Ending the poll and then sharing the results. There you go, Marybeth.
Oh, thank you. Wow, a lot of genetic counselors. That's great. It looks like a good mix of people. Hopefully I have included the resources that are relevant to you. One thing I did underestimate was the number of providers that would be in attendance. So I didn't include information about our CME courses on rare diseases. But if you go to rarediseases.org, in the gray bar at the top, you'll see you can choose whether you're a patient or a caregiver. You want to choose you're a clinician or researcher, and that will direct you to the CME courses. So my apologies in advance. Since I asked about you, I wanted you to quickly introduce you to my team. Dr. Ed Nealon is our Chief Medical and Scientific Officer. Here I am with my grandniece who lives in Norway. Gioconda is our Rare Diseases and Health Equity Specialist. She's pictured with her grandson. And Anjali is our Medical Affairs Program Manager, pictured here with her mom. NORD's mission is to improve the health and well-being of people with rare diseases by driving advances in care, research, and policy. We're rooted in advocacy that spurred a movement. In the late 1970s, a mother who sought answers on medication for her child built a coalition of caregivers and support groups. Their cause became law. Passed in 1983, the Orphan Drug Act was the world's first legislation incentivizing drug development for rare diseases. Their coalition became NORD, the first national nonprofit to provide a forum for belonging, collective impact, and support for all rare diseases. NORD's founders built into our charter a firewall between industry and NORD activities and strategies. In other words, representatives from pharmaceutical companies, biotech companies, and genetic testing companies are not allowed on our board of directors or our scientific medical advisory committee. For 40 years, NORD has been an unwavering national steward and partner, and a steadfast presence helping those who battle and care for rare diseases feel seen, heard, supported, and connected. We are patients, family members, students, clinicians, and researchers united by a single purpose: solve the greatest challenges and unmet needs in rare disease diagnosis, care, treatment, and research. NORD has 7 departments focused on different areas of our work as listed on the left. Sounds like we're really large, but like like our department, medical affairs, there's only a few of us in each of the departments. We're just mighty. We also have 6 supporting departments that keep us all running, which are listed on the right. And of course, we have an executive team that includes Peter Saltonstall, our CEO, Pam Gavin, our executive VP, and Ed Nealon, who I introduced a few moments ago. So what are our resources? Over 2 million unique users visit NORD's website monthly. 85% first land on NORD rare disease reports to find information about their rare disease. All NORD rare disease reports are reviewed by rare disease specialists, and a growing number are available in Spanish. If you need a report translated into Spanish for yourself or a patient, please contact Gioconda. Her email will be in the chat. We also have an extensive library of resources, including video shorts about genetic and rare disease topics. Again, a growing number available in Spanish. The State Resource Center is a new set of resources pulled together by our volunteers in every state and includes organizations offering free or low-cost programs and services for those impacted by rare disease. Tenemos información en español en NORD. Actualmente tenemos 300 informes de enfermedades raras en español. Patient Services is one of our oldest programs. The financial assistance programs are mainly disease specific and help cover costs of treatment and travel. We also offer respite program for caregivers and education support grants. Patient Services Helpline is listed here. Vea los servicios para pacientes y cuidadores de NORD. NORD has a strong network of patient groups, which is not surprising knowing our roots. Patient groups inform much of what we do and help us do much of what we do. We rely on patient groups to support their patient communities in disease-specific ways, and they rely on us to keep focused on the full rare disease community. On the slide are some of the programs that NORD has developed with and for rare disease patient groups, including our patient registry, natural history platform, I Am Rare, Rare Launch, which guides patients and families through the process of becoming a 501c3 and involved in research ready. Our newest resource is the Rare Disease Drug Development Series, which is funded by the FDA as part of a collaborative project with CPATH. This course is available in both English and Spanish through our learning management system, NORD Rare EDU. Advocating for rare disease community is still a high priority for NORD. NORD works with all our member organizations, grassroots advocates through our Rare Action Network and our task force, patients and caregivers, clinicians and researchers to elevate the voice of rare disease community in government by identifying the policy problems and advocating for solutions that can benefit our community. Some of the ways you can get involved are listed in the lower left of the slide. What do we advocate for? Access to new and better therapies, affordable comprehensive health insurance, strengthening policies to support timely diagnosis, protecting the Orphan Drug Act. In 2015, the first State Advisory Council on Rare Diseases was created by North Carolina by patients, caregivers, families, and providers. Through the support of NORD, alongside patient organizations and other members of the rare disease community, momentum around RDACs is growing. There are 27 RDACs represented by orange in this slide. RDACs are showing enormous promise in each of these states to address barriers that prevent rare disease patients from obtaining proper treatment and care for their conditions. But many are still in their infancy and just becoming operational. All continental states who are part of NIMAC have RDACs. We are working in Puerto Rico as well as other states across the United States. NORD has two large annual events for patients and families. Living Rare, Living Stronger Patient and Family Forum usually occurs in June and is in different locations each year. Travel and lodging scholarships are offered to patients and families in the region containing the hosting institution. Our Rare Impact Awards is held in conjunction with this event. The Breakthrough Summit occurs in October in Washington, D.C. Again, travel and lodging scholarships are offered to patients and families, as well as patient advocacy group leaders. The summit boasts an inspiring poster session, which includes posters by patient advocacy organizations, students, and researchers. The meeting is more research and regulatory focused than LRLS, but offers different tracks for patients and families as well. Sorry, I skipped the slide there. I would be remiss if I did not mention one of our major campaigns to raise awareness and shine a spotlight on all those who are living with a rare disease. Rare Disease Day is a global awareness campaign to generate change for 300 million people worldwide living with rare disease, their families, and carers. Rare Disease Day takes place on February 28th, the last day of February each year, and on lucky years, the 29th, a rare day for a rare cause. The global campaign is led by Eurordis in Europe and a steering committee of patient organizations from around the world. NORD is the official US sponsor of Rare Disease Day. On the slide are a few ways you can get involved and show your stripes, and all around me, on Rare Disease Day and every day. It's time for another poll. This is a long question, so I'll read it aloud as the poll is being launched. So in the United States, a rare disease is defined as a condition affecting less than 200,000 people. What percent of genetic rare diseases are estimated to affect 332 people or less living in the United States, or have a prevalence of 1 in a million?
Right, the numbers are bouncing all over the place, Marybeth, as people place put their jelly beans in the jars here. Maybe you could guess what would be the most popular answer.
I'm guessing people chose somewhere in the middle. That's where I'm guessing I would choose if I didn't know the answer.
That's right. Well, it's not quite exactly that. So I'm going to, you might be interested in how this is shaken out. So if you want to cast your vote, this is your last little bit of time here to finalize your guess. In 3, 2, 1. There we go. Here are the results.
Okay, well, spread pretty evenly. That's great. I know this was a really tough one. So the answer actually is, believe it or not, 84.5% of genetic rare diseases have a prevalence of 1 in a million. And the reference it came from is down at the bottom on the slide. So that number is the reason that NORD launched the Rare Disease Center of Excellence program. Networks of disease-specific centers of excellence, like those for CF or ALS, are shown to increase standards of care and quality of life for their patients and advance research and development of new treatments. NORD realized building a network of centers of excellence for one or a few diseases at a time is not scalable for the more than 10,000 rare diseases, and it's not really even possible for all those rare diseases with a prevalence of 1 in a million or less. So we build a network to serve as centers of excellence for all rare diseases. Each designated NORD Rare Disease Centers of Excellence has experts covering all medical specialties required for the diagnosis and treatment of a broad range of rare diseases for both children and adults, and is driving all stages of rare disease research. In addition, each NORD Rare Disease Center of Excellence is dedicated to training the next generation of rare disease clinicians and researchers. Our network is located in 26 states and the District of Columbia, spanning across the United States. Most of the Rare Disease Centers of Excellence are made up of more than one institution. The Rare Disease Centers of Excellence is not a physical clinic, but rather the rare disease specialists are found throughout these institutions in many different departments.
Marybeth, we have just about a minute.
Okay. The Rare Disease Center of Excellence boasts a volunteer network made of more than 325 medical professionals. Together, the NORD and these volunteers are working to solve the top 12 challenges and unmet needs faced by rare disease patients, medical professional, and research community through focused working groups. The NORD Centers of Excellence are working together to share knowledge so patients can travel less, to increase research so there are more treatments, to advocate for equity so every rare disease patient can have their best quality of life, and to train more rare disease specialists so those long waiting lists disappear. Gracias por su atención.
Thank you, Marybeth. Thank you. Our next speaker is Dr. Shruti Mitkus, who is the Director of Genetic Education and Navigation at Global Genes and has over 20 years of experience in human molecular genetics. She earned her doctorate in human genetics and completed a postdoctoral training at the National Institute of Mental Health. After working in the area of clinical genetic diagnostics for rare diseases, she transitioned to genetic education and patient advocacy. She oversees Global Genes Patient Navigation Service, which is known as Rare Concierge, that aims to provide information, resources, and connection to patients, caregivers, advocates, and researchers, and anyone on the rare disease journey.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for that introduction. Hello, everyone. My name is Shruti Mitkus, and before I dive into my talk, I would like to thank NIMAC for inviting Global Genes and for giving us this opportunity to talk to you all. I'm going to focus my talk on Global Genes' programs and initiatives with the aim of expanding impact and meeting unmet needs. But the overall goal is for you to walk away with resources and tangible websites and support resources that you can reach out to, including some of the programs that Global Genes runs. I do not have any financial disclosures. So I'll start off with the mission of Global Genes. We were founded in 2008, and our overarching mission is to provide patient advocates with the continuum services. Global Genes is a pan-rare disease advocacy organization, much like NORD. And we hope to support patients regardless of the journey that the stage of the rare disease journey that they're on, which might include early support services, increasing awareness, and ultimately making individuals and patient advocacy organizations more research ready, using a collaborative approach that involves both funders, biopharma, researchers, and using data as our central core. We have another part of Global Genes called RareX, which is our research program, which I will not delve into too much today, but that you can find additional information on research opportunities through RareX on our website. So very quickly, we have categorized three pillars that we have binned all of our services, initiatives, and toolkits. And those are support, education, and research. For the purpose of this talk today, I am going to be sticking to the support pillar because it's relevant to the audience here. But I just want you all to know that on our Global Genes' website, we have a wide range of educational toolkits and webinars and reports, as well as our in-person event information. And we also have RareX that I mentioned previously, which is our data enablement and research platform. And you can find additional information about that on our website. But for this talk, I'm going to focus on our support pillar. So I've stuck to three of our flagship programs at Global Genes, and those are Rare Concierge Patient Services, as Luba mentioned it earlier. A second program is our Health Equity Program, all in Rare. And finally, a program that we are looking to launch, hasn't launched yet, but we're hopeful to launch soon, called our Access to Answers Program, which is a genetic testing program. So I'll talk a little bit about our patient navigation service. We call it Rare Concierge. So what is Rare Concierge? It is a personalized patient navigation service. It is free for anyone who is on the rare disease continuum. We like to think of it as an epicenter of resources, information, support, and connection. So I'd like to highlight that we are not doing this in a bubble. We sort of work with our patient advocacy partners and others in the space like NORD to connect people to the most appropriate resource that is appropriate for their particular need. So who do we help? Like I mentioned, anyone on the rare disease journey, patients, caregivers, family members, advocates of patient advocacy organizations, and even researchers and clinicians. We help both the diagnosed and the undiagnosed. You do not have to have a clinical or genetic diagnosis for you to avail of our services. And when can we help? Really at any stage. We can help right at the beginning when you or your patients have just gotten a diagnosis, or in fact have been searching for a diagnosis for a number of years and still haven't had one. So from pre-diagnosis all the way up to being research ready to now perhaps start a natural history study or delve into therapeutics and drug development and how to get involved in clinical trial participation. We can help with helping you to connect to those resources. And how do we help? We listen. We have an empathetic patient navigator who listens because she's been down the rare disease journey herself and can relate to some of the challenges that you or your patients might be facing. So we have that lived experience. And then we also have an expansive resource network of connections and support. One of the other programs that Global Genes has is called Global Advocacy Alliance, which is an alliance of over 750 patient advocacy organizations that come together. And it's essentially for capacity building where they learn from each other. So smaller organizations can help sort of mentor, larger organizations can help mentor smaller organizations to be able to get the resources and support and ultimately be able to stand up a clinical trial, perhaps. And so at Rare Concierge, we lean on those experiences and those resources and our advocacy partners to help connect you to the resource that's most appropriate for you. Very quickly, in terms of numbers, in 2023, we fielded over almost 1,600 inquiries from patients, family members, caregivers. And as you can see, we saw about a decent 24% increase year over year. And we're slated to perhaps surpass that for 2024 as we increase services that we provide for patients. What are the few reasons to contact us? So if you're a family member or a patient or even a genetic counselor that's looking for resources for your patient, here are a number of reasons you could contact us. So you could ask about disease state information, connecting to clinical studies and research, certainly connecting to a patient advocacy organization. We can be that central hub where we can connect you to an advocacy organization, which are ultimately the experts in the disease anyway. We can certainly connect to centers of excellence, like Marybeth had pointed to centers of excellence for rare disease. We can provide financial information and connect you to organizations that can provide financial grants. Disability information, certainly we can point people to genetic counseling and testing services that are available. I do want to make it clear that Concierge does not provide any sort of medical advice or genetic counseling. We're not geared for that, but what we do provide is connect people to be able to contact a genetic counselor and provide toolkits and information about what that entails and whether genetic testing is appropriate for them. We have a robust mental health resource repository as well as caregiving resources. And one of the other neat things that we can help you with, and you and your patient population, is that we can help you raise awareness for your disease. And this might mean as simple as starting a Facebook group and a support group to get the word out there, to all the way to setting up a nonprofit organization for your disease, and we can help with that. We operate both nationally as well as internationally. So this data is from 2023, but we have increased our reach to over 48 states in the United States, as well as a number of countries internationally. I will say that we're always on the lookout for additional resources to be able to support our patient population internationally. Most of our resources our robust resources are limited to the Americas and Europe, but we're always looking to build that resource repository out and to be able to connect to local and regional patient advocacy organizations in these continents. I don't expect you to read all of those disease groups on the right, but just know that as of last year, we helped address inquiries that spanned 473 diseases or disease groups. And interestingly, 15% of those inquirers that came to us were undiagnosed, and we were able to provide them with robust resources. Just because they did not have a genetic diagnosis, it did not mean that we couldn't provide them support and resources and connection to umbrella organizations that might be helpful to them in their journey. I'll give you a second to read some of the feedback that we got, but I did just want to highlight that people found our resources to be helpful, particularly as many of you know, the rare disease journey can often be a lonely and isolating experience. And just to have someone who can understand what you're going through, can empathize with you, and then connect you to the next steps and not let you feel like it's a dead end and there's nowhere else to turn. That in itself is quite invaluable to patient populations. And so we got some good feedback on the kind of services that we're providing and hope to provide in the coming years. So that is our patient navigation service. I'm going to talk a little bit about our health equity program called All in Rare, where we're trying to empower underserved communities. So this is a program where we are looking to increase education, identification, and then participation of rare disease patients in disease research. So this program entails educating general population about rare diseases, and it's a bi-directional education initiative. So we're not just throwing educational information at minoritized communities, we're learning from them as well as to exactly what their unique needs are for their community. And this will help us because we can then be able to identify rare disease patients within those communities and provide access to support. Ultimately, the goal is this increasing engagement will help in increased participation of minoritized individuals in the whole rare disease research process. And so we hope to develop a blueprint to identify, support, and engage individuals impacted by rare disease, particularly in minoritized and underserved communities, and be that trusting partner so that we can ultimately enhance diversity and equity and inclusion in care and clinical trials and rare disease research. This is the overarching theme of our All in Rare program. It is really, the foundation is really trust. So we aim to educate on rare disease. We hope to train community health workers. The pilot program currently is only being done in 2 particular cities, which I'll mention, but we hope to scale up where we can educate community health workers across the nation in understanding what a rare disease is and what the challenges of living with a rare disease are. Once we've done that, we hope to identify rare disease patients in these communities. We're working with faith-based community partners in these cities, as well as community health workers that are embedded in these communities to be then able to identify rare disease patients. And once we've done that, we hope to provide them support through our Rare Concierge program. We can provide them with training, support, answer their disease-specific questions, and connect them to resources out in the community. And ultimately, we hope to engage and increase engagement and participation of these communities in the clinical trial process. As we know, there's a huge need to increase diversity in clinical trial participation. And we're hoping that after building this trust-based relationship with these communities, we're able to increase participation in genetic testing, in clinical trials, and ultimately impact treatment for some of these rare diseases. The pilot cities that I mentioned are Kansas City and Birmingham. We're starting with those 2, hope to expand further out to the country. As I said earlier, we're working with faith-based communities and churches in these areas to identify community health workers so that these workers are coming from the communities that they serve. They're ultimately going to be trained in public health and health literacy and rare disease, and certainly genetic testing and genetic counseling and how that can lead to earlier diagnosis. And finally, clinical trial and participation in research. We also aim to identify and support the patients that are identified through this program and then guide them to participation in clinical trial research if that is appropriate for them. And as I mentioned, we also hope to expand to other geographical areas, working with community health workers across the country, and particularly in other minoritized communities. So we have the Black community and Hispanic community. We also aim to ultimately reach Native American communities and other communities that are historically underserved. I touched a little bit upon Access to Answers. It's a program that we don't currently have set up, but is going to be coming soon. And that is our program that we have to increase access to free whole genome sequencing. So as was mentioned earlier, over 80% of rare diseases have a genetic component to them. And accessing genetic testing is a real barrier to a large number of people. And so we aim to have a pilot phase of this program called Access to Answers, where we will focus on pediatric onset neurological conditions. But the neat thing about this program, and perhaps what sets us apart from other sponsored testing programs, is that it's not limited to infants or newborns or infants. It's infants as well as adults are eligible for this program, as long as it's a pediatric onset condition. We're going to be leveraging the Rare Concierge Patient Support Service, as I mentioned earlier, as well as our All-in Rare Health Equity Program to really identify eligible patients, particularly from underserved communities. I don't have to tell this audience the importance of genetic counseling in any sort of testing scenario. So intrinsic to this program is pre and post genetic counseling that will be provided. This program is also unique because it is non-physician directed testing. We hope that another barrier to testing could be that patients, particularly in certain communities, don't have access to a specialized pediatric neurologist that can then order a genetic test for them. We hope to overcome that barrier by offering non-physician directed testing. It will be clinical grade testing. We also have an insurance covered arm of it. Currently, not very many payers are covering whole genome sequencing, but we do have, it's sort of changing. United Healthcare and Cigna is starting to see the value of paying for whole genome sequencing. So there will be an insurance covered arm of it. And then for those individuals that go through the testing and either have a high suspicion variant of unknown significance identified, or have just not had any hits in their whole genome sequencing, there's the option to have research grade testing, which is further involved, where they'll be able to get additional answers. And all clinical and genetic data from this is going to be collected through our RareX research platform. It is patient-owned patient data. They'll be able to direct what that data is to be used for. And we hope that that data can be then made available to qualified researchers that can then mine the data to identify new druggable targets for some of these rare diseases. And again, the unique aspect of this program is that regardless of getting a positive test result, all patients and families will be supported through our Rare Concierge program, and will be supported with resources and connection and support regardless of diagnostic outcome.
I think we only have a minute left.
Sounds good. I'll wrap up. This is just a representation of what I said and how our programs all sort of are interconnected, need each other. Rare Concierge is able to guide people to Access to Answers and genetic testing, as well as community health workers directing people to genetic testing, and all of the data is curated in our RareX platform. I will leave you there. If you do want to contact Global Genes as well as patient services for any sort of questions for your patients or for yourselves, please feel free to go to this website. We have a very quick intake form, or you can scan our QR code and fill in your particular inquiry, and our patient navigator will be happy to answer your questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Nuestro
So our third
tercer
speaker cannot be
ponente
with us
no
today.
pudo venir el día de hoy,
Dr.
doctor
Donna
Donna Messersmith. Ella
Messersmith is
es
the provider
especialista
education
en
specialist in education and
educación e
community involvement in the
involucramiento
branch of the
de
Division of Genomics
la
and
comunidad en la
Society at the Human
investigación
Genome
del
Research
genoma en
Institute.
el
But we're
Instituto
very
de
fortunate that Alyssa
Investigación,
Terry is willing to go through her
pero
slides,
estamos
and
muy contentos
we
de que
hope
Alicia
that Donna
Terry
can join us at another
vaya a
time.
explicar la ponencia y que Donna pueda estar con nosotros en otro momento.
Thanks, everybody. As Luba said, Donna was not able to join us today, but she is planning on doing a recording of her section of this, which we'll make available to all of you in the coming weeks. I think everybody knows me by now, but if you haven't seen me yet, my name is Alyssa Terry. I'm a genetic counselor, and I am the project manager for NIMAC. But I also worked and did my training at NHGRI, which is where Donna was coming from, and I'm a member of one of the organizations that she was planning to speak about. So I'm hoping I can represent her well. I do not have it. Donna did not have any financial disclosures, and I also do not have any financial disclosures. So Donna was hoping to share with you some work that NHGRI is doing on education and resources about genetics for healthcare professionals and for the community at large. Donna helps lead the Inter-Society Coordinating Committee for Practitioner Education in Genomics, which is ISCC-PEG. I am a member of that organization, and I've seen other people on today that are as well. This group aims to improve genomic literacy of healthcare providers and enhance effective practice of clinical genomic medicine by facilitating interactions among key stakeholders in genomic education. So members of that group collaborate to identify educational needs and potential solutions. They share best practices and educational approaches and develop educational resources. The membership right now includes over 260 representatives from different societies, professional organizations, NIH institutes, and industry, as well as people with a lot of expertise in medical education. Their members develop resources to help integrate genomic literacy into clinical practice. There are 8 to 10 different project groups made up of the members, which work to address major areas and create resources. And we're going to take a look at some of the examples of those. ISCC-PEG just had its 13th annual meeting a couple weeks ago, and I know that videos and slides of that meeting and presentations are available on their website. There's the link. So again, the goal of this group is to improve genomic literacy by using interdisciplinary collaboration to really determine key needs, create useful resources, figure out how to disseminate them, and focus on best practices. So one example of a resource from their working group that focuses on frequently asked questions about direct-to-consumer testing. I know that in a lot of our NIMAC teams, this issue has come up, sort of what to do when families come in with results from testing that they did on their own. So this is a resource that they developed to help answer families' questions about what direct-to-consumer testing can and can't tell them. There's also a really large nursing genomics group. They address genomics education needs for nurses at all different levels of training and practice. You can check out their resources using the QR code or the link there. I can definitely tell you that from our work in the Virgin Islands, it's really the nurses there that are doing a vast majority of the work, especially around newborn screening. So there's just times and places where these nursing genomics resources are really important and valuable. The pharmacogenomics working group focuses on the way genetics affects a person's response to medications. They created a learning series with continuing education credits from the University of Pittsburgh, and they share information there about nomenclature, resources, implementation, and direct-to-consumer pharmacogenomic issues. So it's always good to entice people with continuing education credits, we know. In June, there is a Healthcare Professionals Genomics Education Week. In 2023, ISCC-PEG hosted 15 webinars, and we'll share the link to where you can find those. So there's also a fair amount of work done at NHGRI creating resources for the community. I know we use a lot of them in our NIMAC work. This is one of them. There's a great talking glossary of genomic terms in both English and Spanish. I know we linked to that from our website. There is also Genome Unlocking Life's Code, which is a collaboration between NHGRI and the Smithsonian National Museum of Natural History. After its debut at the Smithsonian, this exhibition was disassembled and transported to museums and science centers all across North America. And there are still virtual tours of the exhibit available online. So check that out. And then lastly, I know it was mentioned a couple hours ago, but DNA Day is coming up on April 25th. Each year, NHGRI hosts an annual DNA Day lecture at the National Institutes of Health. These lectures are intended to spark curiosity in NIH staff about how to engage with the public on DNA and its applications in society. This year, former NPR science correspondent Joe Pelka will share his views on public science literacy in his talk entitled, "Do People Really Know What DNA Is?" So that's coming up this month. Check that out. And I hope overall you'll check out some of those great resources from NHGRI and that can help support your work in genetics and genomics. Our thanks again to Donna for sharing these slides with us. And I think now we are going to stop and take questions that you guys have for any of the organizations that were here today.
I actually have a question back with for Global Genes. Do you support families as they try to enter the undiagnosed program?
Do you mean with the Undiagnosed Disease Network?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Well, we're not affiliated with them, and
Right.
we do sort of course, work with them collaboratively, but it's not as if we're associated with them in a formal partnership. But having said that, we do get a number of families that'll come to us searching for a diagnosis. And if we feel like there might be a good candidate for the Undiagnosed Disease Network program, we absolutely send them there to them. So yes, we do shuttle people to the Undiagnosed Disease Network if we feel like they would benefit from that. But we don't have any sort of formal partnership with them.
I was thinking more in terms of helping them navigate that process because it is involved. The application process, I just didn't know if you were involved in that phase of it.
We aren't, but that's a really good point. We could certainly expand our services to help with that because you're quite right. Some of those forms are quite sophisticated and need can need some guidance. So yeah, but currently we do not.
I would just add there that I think the UDNF is doing that, the Undiagnosed Disease Network Foundation is helping families get into the program and supporting families through the program.
That's good information. Thank you.
Right, so there was a question in the chat that asked about whether Global Genes can connect families that are looking for other families. We certainly can. If you contact Rare Concierge, we can connect you either through the patient advocacy organization that serves that disease area, or we can connect you through other resources that we have. We also have a Facebook group where patients and family members and caregivers and advocates can sort of talk amongst each other and connect that way. So yes, we do help with connecting families to others in the disease space.
Do we have any other questions?
I was just noticing up above, one of our team members from New Jersey, Cindy, was commenting when community health workers were brought up. Our NIMAC team in New Jersey did a collaboration with the community health workers there, and they were just commenting on how they were excited to see something similar that you were mentioning. You know, I think for the same reasons of really getting people who are plugged into the community, kind of to help spread the word about how to access services or sort of how to raise those concerns if you have them, to a trusted provider. So that was great to see.
Yeah, and so this September, I did want to say really quickly on that note of community health workers. Hopefully by this September, one of the things that we're doing in partnership with the Rare Disease Diversity Coalition is creating a community health worker curriculum. So a 7-module series used to train community health workers. And the entire curriculum is focused on rare disease education. So each module starts with basic rare disease information, and then it builds upon that, and it includes things like, what is genetic testing? Why should I care about my family health history? How can a genetic counselor help me? Sort of basic information, but things that really there's a huge need for the community to hear. And so we're creating this 7-module series curriculum for community health workers. It should be ready by late September, where we hope to unveil that. And ultimately, we hope that that can be part of community health worker training across the country. So certified in a certain way that we can deploy it across the nation. And so, yeah, that's something exciting, and that we're hoping that can then get to people in the communities that they live in.
Dr. Bedortha was asking, any particular outreach to the federally qualified health centers?
That's a great question. So those are conversations we're having currently. The current focus on the pilot, I know I always talk about pilots, don't I? The current focus on the pilot, based on the limited funding, is going to be on just creation of this curriculum. And then the next phase of it is talking about, how can we dispense this information? And certainly conversations with the federally qualified health centers has come up. I think that will be a project for next year, to be quite honest with you, but it's certainly something that's on our radar.
We have something somewhat similar in that we're developing guides to help primary care practitioners understand how to direct people to, or when they need to direct someone to genetics or to a specialist. And we are working, there's 40 rare disease centers of excellence, and all of them are connected to their federally qualified health centers in the area. So our pilots will be reaching out to these federally qualified health care centers to see how we can impact and understand what their needs are, to help them to make more tools to help them, guide them, and make it an easier process to get their patients to be seen at the centers.
Marybeth, I had a question for you, since there's so many genetic counselors participating. You mentioned that there's a CU program that you're making available.
Yeah, so NORD has a big program that they have a number of CEU programs available on our website. That the most recent one is on Rett syndrome, and they're usually 2 or 3 series long, and they have different components in them. But yes, they're available on our website.
Thank you for letting us know that. So Lynn Perry wrote, my 4 kids or children, 3 of which are now adults, were diagnosed with a nonspecific connective tissue disorder back in 2013 at Johns Hopkins. We had a whole genome testing done through Hopkins Baylor study, the Mendelian Project, but never got any answers about running the data twice. Could I work with someone to get our data reevaluated?
So, Lynn, if you would email me, I think my email's in the chat, but it's mmcafee@rarediseases.org. I can connect you with Nara Sobrero, Dr. Nara Sobrero at Johns Hopkins, who was part of that Baylor Hopkins study and probably has access to your data. But if she doesn't, you can work with her to get your whole genome testing re-evaluated.
And then we had another comment in the chat. As a doctor, I would like to congratulate NORD both in Spanish and English for the great help to my patients.
Thank you, Carla.
There's a fan club for everyone here. That's lovely.
There were several families commenting early on just how much they appreciated both Marybeth and Shruti, all the things that you were sharing, the resources you were sharing. I know I was thinking when Shruti, when you're talking about your rare concierge, it reminded me a little bit of, we've just built a genetics navigator program in a couple of the states that we support, and sounded very similar in a lot of ways. So it's great to see those kind of supports in place to help families that are wading through a process that nobody understands and nobody thought they were going to be in, and good
That's
to see another
right.
one out there.
Thank you. I start because as I'm a bench scientist by training, right? I'm not a rare disease patient. I'm not a rare disease caregiver. But our concierge team is unique in that I bring the scientific, sort of more of the research and scientific sort of understanding of the disease. But our patient navigator brings that lived experience and exactly that. If you're a patient or a parent that has suddenly been thrust into this rare disease world, you need someone to tell you it's all right, and who understands and who's been there. And I think these sort of patient navigation services are vital to not feel completely alone and inundated with fear and uncertainty, but know that there are people out there, services like ours, and NORD's patient services that can really hold your hand and guide you through this process, free of charge. There's no obligation. You contact us when you need us, and so I think that's really vital in this rare disease journey. And we've heard from a lot of people that it's helped them just get to the next step, or if nothing else, just know that they're not alone, others are familiar with what they're going through. So
I mean, I think the role of NORD and Global Genes of giving families a sense that there are organizations and advocates who are also trying to move forward the idea of treatment, and that they can have a role themselves in being partners. And I think that that's really important, because once you have a diagnosis, where do you go from there? And where do you get the hope? And I think through the meetings, NORD and Global Genes, that's where families go, and that's where they are inspired and can have some belief that there's a process in place.
you're absolutely right. That's so true. And that it's reflected in the patients and families that participate in our research platform, RareX, where patients, it's patient-derived longitudinal data that we're collecting, where patients fill out surveys and tell us what their disease is about. And that's their way of being able to move the needle forward in terms of research and be able to contribute to the next step of understanding their disease and perhaps identifying drug treatable targets. And so you're absolutely right. Being able to participate in either a research study or a clinical program that can give you a sense of being able to contribute to a therapeutic outcome is hugely empowering to patients.
Do we have any other questions for our presenters today? Well, it was very interesting to see and learn more about these resources. It doesn't matter how long I've been in practice, and know about your resources. It's still amazing to see how each of these programs have expanded. And I think it's part in listening to what the families want, and we thank you for that.